Okay, so hi again.
Hey,
By the way, if you would like to introduce yourself, then you're more than welcome to do so.
yeah. Um, so my name is Rob Schwartz, and I'm calling from New York City, and here I'm a coach and a trainer also. Um, and actually, yeah, if you can say your name, because over here we would completely massacre it. I'm sure.
I was born in Russia, so my family name is Russian. It's Krasniץ. Krasniץ.
Okay, I'm
And
not even.
the first name is Eli. So Eli is easy, Krasniץ is a bit more complex.
All right, so we'll stick with Ellie.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, continuing from last time, I I listened to our discussion again, actually a couple times, and then yeah, I was just noticing. What I like to do is notice whatever questions come up for me,
Mhm.
and also one thing we were talking about just before recording today is I think some of my questions come from reflecting both on my own experience, like what's my experience in the world, and also from the perspective of talking to other people and talking to clients. So I think some of the questions sort of come from that. But I think we were talking about how do you first make contact with a client, and what the first question that occurred to me was in working with someone, how do you teach them to get in touch with this younger part or one of these younger parts in themselves?
Mhm. Okay. So basically, it's not a younger part, but it's the inner world, which is comprised of bodily sensations and emotions and thoughts. Thoughts that come as words, sound, or images. So what I refer to as the experiential world, the world that we experience. I don't go into the inner workings of how things come to be the way they are, like what creates the thoughts and what are the processes in the brain that create them. I just deal with the experiential level, like what I experience, I feel the somatic experience, I feel it, the emotional experience, I feel it, and the thoughts, I can perceive them, I hear them, I see them. So what I deal with is what I experience, what I actually experience. Okay, so all this complex of bodily sensations, emotions, and thoughts as images and sounds, I call it the child. And I refer to it as a child not because it is really a child, but because it benefits to, to call it a child, because intuitively we understand that some kind of a loving, compassionate, understanding approach is required, and empathy, because unfortunately, or as sad as it may sound, for many, many, many of us, there is a great lack of empathy in the childhood. Parents who were busy, who were struggling themselves, who were not raised up in a loving environment themselves, or went through a lot of trauma, they did not have the capacity to be very empathic towards the children. Most of the parents, like a differentiates from home to home, from man to man, but basically, mostly I find that there is a lack of empathy, especially regarding to feelings, to emotions. Like I don't remember in my childhood that anybody ever asked me, "What are you feeling?
Hmm.
What are your emotions? How can I be some kind of pleasant approach or loving approach to your emotions?" No, there was no talk about emotions. There were expectations, there were demands, and I had to fit into the demands and expectations. There were some fun activities and stuff like that, but compassion towards emotions, understanding, emotional intelligence was so missing in my life, in my childhood. And I see in so many other cases that people grow up to be speechless in many ways. Like we don't know how even to speak what we feel, to express the desire. And that's why all these awkward situations are so common when we meet other people and we don't know what to say or how to communicate. And we go to these frozen places like, oh, okay. You know, so this is a big issue that I find, that is lack of empathy and emotional communication. So when people come to me, first, of course, I will listen to them, I will understand, I will get some intuitive understanding of their situation, the way their language works, what are their concepts, their beliefs, their emotional state. And I will get this intuitive information, and slowly, after a short explanation of how things work and the body and the sensations and the thoughts and everything, how it works together, so they just have an understanding of, at least a partial understanding of what we are going to do and why, because I find it important that people who come to me or learn from me in any way will be partners in understanding what are we doing and why are we doing this, because I want to help them get the capacity to be themselves good parents to their inner children. So they have to understand what is happening and why, because they're going to use it in the process. Okay? So they're like partners to learning something together. And after this explanation, we will start it differentiates from person to person, but generally speaking, we start exploring the four principles of loving approach. First one is attention. We learn how to pay attention to the body. Like, for example, in the body, we have a huge variety of sensations, some of which are more pleasant, some of which are unpleasant. And while focusing on the body or getting in touch with our bodily sensations, there are so many sensations that we can get easily lost in them. You know, if we start paying attention to every small detail, it will take so much time and we'll get lost. So I teach them that there are essentially emotions that come from contraction. Something is contracting, yeah? Like self-protective responses. They make us contract. The muscles contract like in animals. You know, you'll never see a rabbit or an eagle or a bear get like this unless there is some kind of danger. Even potential danger, like the sound of something loud will make us go into the sympathetic state of being like a spring, you know, like a spring which is ready to react in this way or the other. So what I tell people, that we don't have to look at every possible sensation. We just look at whatever is contracted within us. Then we find all this sensation of contraction, of tension, of heaviness, of even pain. Because if something is contracted for a long period of time, it will start to hurt. And it will develop all kinds of health issues around it over time, if it's chronic. So we look at this, or we look at the more relaxed sensations, like the flow, relaxation, expansion that we feel in the body, pleasure that comes from the flow, the free flow of, you might say, energy, or otherwise put it in other words. But I look at the contraction and expansion in the body. Okay? So the more pleasant sensations come from the expansion, the less pleasant sensations come from the contraction. And so we start learning how to observe the sensation in the body, just observing them. Then we can start to observe emotions. And here again, we meet this such lack of empathy towards emotions that so many people, they don't even know how to recognize their own emotions. And we start playing with it. It's like with children. Make it fun, make it easy, you know? And all the time we keep in mind that there are no negative emotions or positive emotions. They are all just like children telling me, oh, I have this need. I need security. I need love. I need warmth. There's nothing negative about asking for something, you know? And this is also one big issue that I find, that we are so afraid to ask, to reveal what we really desire, because as children, it was not easy to ask for something. Many times our parents would give us the impression that asking for something is wrong. Don't ask for too much. Don't be selfish. Don't be spoiled. Don't be, you know, these sayings. and gave us the example that asking for what we really want in life is wrong and is dangerous. And even the way they treated us when we were expressing our basic needs, in many times we got they got angry at us, they would ignore us. Okay, so all these things made us afraid of asking for what we really want. So therefore we started suppressing the desires and the emotions that come with these desires. So now we do like a reverse process. We start recognizing the emotions. We start recognizing that there is nothing wrong with my emotions. Even if they are afraid or sad or angry, there is nothing wrong about that. There is nothing negative about that. Because all it is a child asking for security. How can this be negative? Okay, so we start looking through compassionate and understanding eyes at the emotions that come up. And of course, we celebrate the more bright emotions like happiness or compassion or gratitude. Oh, if there's a party going on, we will join it and we'll expand this joy. But if there is a need, there is a cry, there is sadness, there is anger, we will not ignore this also. So we meet the both kinds of emotions. Those who tell me that something is needed, like security or love or some kind of treatment, and those who say that I already have what I need and now I can celebrate and expand this joy in my life. Okay, so we start practicing how to acknowledge my emotions, whatever they are, and see that there is nothing wrong. There is no negative intention. They are not trying to hurt me. I don't have to overcome my emotions. I don't have to fix my emotional problem. Just receive the gift. Oh, I'm just expressing my deep desire for security. How great is that? That I can have this capacity. Because most of us, in some way, we feel paralyzed. Paralyzed, we are so afraid to ask. And we are so sensitive, all of us. But of course, out of this sensitivity comes the fear of asking for something in our lives. And if we don't ask for it, it will usually not happen because we will not make it happen. So we recover the ability with time to ask, to ask for what we really desire. Okay? And this is another thing that happens. And also with the thoughts, there is a big issue of learning how not to identify with the thoughts. And in many cases, you know, when you start teaching, learning meditation for many traditions, they'll just tell you, just observe the thoughts. They are like the clouds. Okay, just let them pass like clouds or whatever. Just don't interact with them at all. Okay, just observe, just be there. And I find it very useful to really being able to observe, but from my experience, it doesn't end just in observing, just being a passive observer. It's a very important capacity to be able to observe, but then we also learn how to be empathic towards the thoughts. Because all our thoughts, every single thought that we have is telling something about our needs. It's always about the need and the feed. Okay? It's
the need
and the feed and the feeding, whatever it gives the solution to the need. You know, we have really basically only three kinds of needs. One is regarding survival and security, you know, to have health, money, food, home, shelter, some network of people who can support us, okay? And this is one thing that we put a lot of energy in our lives, in this need. The second one is interactions, relationships like friends, children, family, community, whatever that we create, establish human connections. This is another need that we spend a lot of energy on in our lives. And the third one is self-fulfillment, like really doing what we love, you know, to say in the end, I did it my way. So just to give whatever gift we have to give, to do whatever our hearts want to do. So these are the three needs, basic needs of a human being: survival and security, relationships, and self-fulfillment. Of course, in this we can find many branches, but these are the three major And every thought that we have, in some way, is talking about one of our needs and the possibility of fulfilling this need. Okay, the possibility or the impossibility. Okay, but it's kind of funny, because we think so much and so many thoughts, and yet when we look at it, all our thoughts, they are just the need and the answer to this need. That is all we're ever discussing. Okay, I need a relationship, I need food, I need health, I need security, I need money, I need self-fulfillment through such and such activities. This is all that we think about, basically.
Right. All day.
Yeah. So we learn in the beginning how to recognize, because recognition is so important, because if we don't recognize, then we always will be under the impression that something is wrong with me. Something is wrong and I have to fix it. Something wrong and I have to fix it. And we heard this music so much from our early childhood. Our parents would play this music for us. Something wrong and we have to fix it. Something wrong, we have to fix it. And then we keep on playing this music. Something's wrong and we have to fix it. And all this time, it brings an anxiety and sense that something is wrong with me and I'm incomplete and I'm not good enough and self-criticism, all the unpleasantness is arising from this belief that something is wrong with me, it needs fixing, I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough. So by recognizing the true quality of our bodily sensations, we are just providing information and emotions that tell us about our needs, and the thoughts also tell us something about our needs. We are becoming less and less judgmental towards ourselves and less afraid of ourselves, of our inner content, because we learn to be afraid of it.
That was sort of the second question or point that I was thinking about, which is, very often I think when you become aware of your inner world, I think very often the first reaction is judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, oh, I'm angry, but it's I'm angry and that's bad, and I want to get rid of that, and it's been messing with me for a long time. So I'm wondering, how you deal with that judgment, because in my experience working with people, they're not necessarily passive to their internal experience. They're usually angry about it, or like you said, judgmental, resentful. Does that make sense?
Yes, you're absolutely right. This is what happens in most of the cases, because this is a very smart mechanism, because it makes so much sense, because when we are children, we are very emotional and we are very open and very direct with our emotions. We don't try to suppress them, to hide them. We just present them as they are, expecting that our parents would give us the response of approval or some guidance or something which would help us to feel loved and secure, by any means, that whatever emotion I will express as a child, my deepest expectation is it would be met with some kind of loving response from the parent. A loving response can also set borders, but not in a violent way, not in a way that tells me that I'm not good enough, okay? But just explaining that this is unpleasant and this is, until here it's okay, beyond this point it's not pleasant to me and I will not allow it, but I love you nonetheless and you're perfectly fine. It's not about you being not good enough, it's just about me not being hurt, okay? The right way to set a border is not by judging someone or telling them that they're wrong and they're bad or something like that. It's just by expressing my own needs. You're perfectly fine, but just this is my limit. Beyond this, I will get hurt, and this is what I will not allow, okay? So in our childhood, in most of the cases, this was not the way that our parents talked to us. And in many cases, we were expressing our natural emotions as children, and they got angry, They got frustrated at us. They would tell us that this is wrong and how do you behave and how dare you and stuff like that, you know, or be even violent towards expressions of natural emotions by children. And also their example that they gave to us. They also did not express their emotions. They also did not talk openly about their emotions. So we learned that emotions are a problem. Emotions are a major problem because they make me do things that my parents will be angry at me after that. They will not give me the love, the approval that I need after that. So what's the problem? The problem is my emotions. This is the conclusion we all reach in some step in our early childhood, that my emotions are a major problem, and it's a risk. So I have to suppress them, to judge them, because they are really a liability for me all the time. So how do we change this approach? Of course, it takes time, but the basic thing is, what is judgment? Judgment is a thought process, right? It's something that we can put in words. Oh, this anger is bad, this is wrong, this is a problem for me, it makes me do stuff I don't want, it will hurt me, and so on. So this is a thought, okay? But when we look, and this is what I like to do, is look at the whole complex. Like I see the reality right now, it's comprised of bodily sensations, emotions, and thoughts. So if I take, for example, such a moment, and I help people to reach this recognition, it doesn't take a lot of time, okay? It will take some time to get established in it, but to see it, it's not so hard, okay? So just, okay, this is the situation now. Let's check what's happening in the body. Oh, I have contraction in my chest and my stomach, and my breath is kind of short, and there's some tension in my shoulders and my jaws, but other parts are relaxed, okay? And I have this anger and frustration and fear and sadness within me, and also some relaxation and some happiness alongside with that. And my thoughts are telling me, oh, this is so bad, and this is wrong, and why is this happening, and stuff like that, yeah? So I say, okay, let's look at the entire thing, yeah? This is the child. He is angry, he is frustrated, and he is telling himself that this is wrong, that he shouldn't feel like that. And then we learn to talk with this child. Like the first thing I ask people to do, and I guide them, is to talk to themselves consciously and just reflect whatever reality they find inside. Just they tell themselves, oh, I see that you are contracting your stomach and that you are holding tension in your shoulders, in your breath. And I see that you are angry, you feel angry and frustrated, and also a little bit relaxed and happy. Oh, and I see that you are telling yourself that you should not feel like that. And if this is okay, I would like to be here with you, just to listen. Okay? This is the first approach. We just reflect what's happening to this inner child, and just talking to him without no advice, not trying to change anything, but just allowing the system to recognize itself. What is happening right now? Because you know, in India, they have this story about three blind men who never saw an elephant. Do you know about this? Yeah, I heard it in a Vipassana course one time. So yeah, I tell it shortly just to make the point. So that three blind people, they never saw an elephant. So somebody brought the elephant and told them, okay, go touch the elephant so that you have the idea what is an elephant, because they never saw one. So one is got hold of the trunk of the elephant. Oh, and he said, oh, the elephant is like a snake. And the other one got hold of the leg of the elephant. And he said, oh, the elephant is like a big pillar. And the third one got hold of the tail of the elephant. And he said, oh, it's like a brush. The elephant is like a brush. So everybody got the idea of what is an elephant, and it's quite different from the elephant. So this is what happens when we only listen to the thoughts, okay? Because if I only listen to the thoughts, I have the idea that something is wrong, because the thoughts most of the time will tell me that something is wrong. There is a problem, there is a danger, and I must do something to resolve this problem, okay? So this is what happens when I listen just to the thoughts. I don't perceive the elephant. Okay, I just think the elephant is just, this is a problem. Okay, but then I say, okay, these are the thoughts, but now let's listen to the emotions. And I see that while the thoughts are saying that something is wrong, my emotions, I feel angry, sad, frustrated. And this brings up some other intuitive approach. Okay, and then I feel, oh, and my body is responding as if I'm really right now in danger. And looking around, I see no danger. There is no danger right now. So what's happening with me? Something is there, it sparks another kind of intelligence. Okay, because when I see that this child is angry, frustrated, he's holding tension in his body, he's reacting as if there is a danger, and he's telling himself constantly that something is wrong with him or his emotions or this or that. Some kind of compassion. Oh my God, this is what's happening with this child. He is so afraid. And what is he so afraid of? He is the only one here. No one is attacking me. No danger is here. And still I'm reacting like that. Oh, so it becomes so evident that there is a very strong need for some kind of security, some kind of love. And he is not getting it. And not just from now. It's just from so many years he is not getting it. So it's like in trauma. It's, oh my God, something is wrong, I'm in danger, I'm in danger. And when you see this, something really starts to warm. Like it becomes like clear that compassion and love is needed here. And even seeing this, it's already compassion and love, because you see this child and he's just so afraid and so helpless to express his needs, so that he's criticizing himself over and over and over again, hoping that someone would understand, that just asking for love, asking for some kind of security that comes from a conscious place, like a parent who can see the bigger picture, who can approach this child not from within, but from the outside, to see, oh, I see what's happening to you. And if it's okay, can I be with you here? Just listen to you, just to help you see what's happening. And this is the beginning, you know? So this is the way it starts.
Great. It sounds like even more than the beginning.
A little bit more.
So I'm going to ask this. You've already been speaking to this in a certain way, but what I noted down was really how you're dealing with, or how you're inviting people to deal with intensely strong emotions. You know, like anger,
Mm-hmm.
sadness, or jealousy, when it becomes overwhelming. And you mentioned that people identify, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not only do they identify, they are identified.
It's actually the intensity issue is quite interesting, because I believe that there is a certain level of intensity which is helpful to work with. And if we go beyond this, it will not help. It will create even more trauma. So
So you wouldn't engage it if it's at that moment, if it's beyond that intensity?
No, what I'm saying is that where I aim is to work in a certain level of intensity, but not beyond that, and also not below that, because below we become so numb and irresponsive, and everything fades away. But beyond some point, it becomes really stressful on the system. So because of that, the first thing that we learn, because this is why it's called like initial conditions. We'll not start the session talking about emotions before I see that the person is ready and he has some level of consciousness, because consciousness is a great way to make sure that we don't go beyond a certain threshold of intensity. Okay, because while I'm conscious and I'm not identifying greatly with the emotion, that it will keep the intensity down. Okay, So because this is why the first thing I work on is consciousness. It's just whatever the story you brought with me, it's okay, we will deal with it. But first, let's see how we practice our consciousness. Just being able to put attention here and there, and just, it's like mindfulness, but a bit different. So when we have established this at a certain level, the system will not allow itself to exceed this intensity level. It happens automatically because it's a bit complex to explain, but this is the way it works, that because the approach is direct and conscious approach, we are not trying to mess with the subconscious mind or force things out like we do with, for example, with, there is breath therapy. It's very popular now that you breathe a lot and you get into this state of like a bit intoxicated, you get some dizzy and some emotions start coming up. I forgot the term. It's like hyperventilation. You get into hyperventilation, and then you lose the control of the thoughts of the mind, and emotions will come up very strongly. So these processes like force emotional intensity to come up. But this is very different. The way I work with people, because we have the resource, the major resource is consciousness. Just being able to perceive whatever is happening without identifying with it. And the conversation that we start having with ourselves is proportional to the amount of consciousness that we have. So what happens is that we don't trigger intensity, emotional intensity, which is higher than the capacity of the consciousness to perceive. Okay, does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It makes sense. It sounds easier said than done. I guess very often in my experience working with people, when they come in, they're already in the emotion. So I'm wondering, how do you step back from that when you're working with someone?
Yeah. This is true. People come in every possible state, but first is my setting. How am I present in this moment? Because my presence is also very important. That they see that I'm not judging them, not trying to do anything to them. That I'm trusting them. I trust their system. I trust that whatever is there is smart, is good, is beneficial. We just have to see what is happening. So I think my attitude is a bit making people more relaxed.
Got it.
And also my tone of speech, my body language is just something that comes very intuitively and naturally. But and this is the point, that we don't start talking about their issues. Okay? And we start learning how to create the tool, okay, this consciousnness. Okay, even if you're angry, but we start observing, okay, let's start, just can you tell me what's happening in this room right now? What do you see? Oh, I see the ceiling, the walls, whatever, whatever the objects are in the room. Then the nervous system will become more on the parasympathetic side. No, not the sympathetic system, which is always agitated about something. Oh, this is the problem, this is the danger. We go to the parasympathetic. And we create a base of calmness, of ability to process. And only then we start recognizing the thoughts and the emotions and the body. So there is this preparation of consciousness before we step in.
Got it.
Okay? And I'd explain, okay, we have this issue, sure, this is what you are here for, but when building a building, we have to do some preparatory work. We don't start just building stuff, okay? We have to prepare the ground, we have to make sure that the foundation is strong, then we will build a nice building, So I don't start with addressing the issue directly, never, almost. I mean, there are exceptions, always there are exceptions, but mainly I will not start dealing with anything before we have established some kind of consciousness and some kind of ability to process, because otherwise, it will go into intensity and it will. Yeah. So this is the way I keep it. And when you said it's easier said than done, My experience is the opposite. It's easier done than said, because to explain it, it's not easy, because it's such an intuitive thing, you know?
Yeah.
When I'm there with the person, okay, this is so intuitive. Okay, so I will ask a question that will awake the consciousness in some way. And if something is very hot, if something is very intense, we will not go directly into that. We will find the approach that will balance the system, okay? Because jumping into the red spot will not bring us anywhere, okay? So we'll just go around and find something that we can relax into to increase our capacity of processing, and then only we will address this issue, but only to the extent that the system allows us. We'll not force it by any means, okay? So it's effortless. It's mainly effortless. This is why the system is protected by its own capacity to process the emotions. It will not allow itself to exceed the capacity, because we are always working consciously and not forcingly. So it's like what?
I didn't catch that last bit.
Yeah, it's like Tai Chi, you know? Tai Chi, it's like we are together with the system, but we are not pushing the system. So yeah, it's more like that.
Okay. Well, before we got on, you mentioned this idea of, which is a very interesting topic, of intrusive thoughts or obsessive thoughts, and the way you are describing it is, yeah, maybe there's a troubling thought that just pops into your head. It could be violence or sexuality or aggression, and you said many people come to you to work with this, and I would love to hear what you have to say about that and what your approach is.
Sure. So first of all, I can tell about myself that I used to suffer from these thoughts like since I was 16 or 17, and it would come to me like terrible images of everything that I not wanted to see. It came to me very vividly, like death and disease and sexual perversion and like the most horrifying images I could ever imagine that they would come to me again and again. And my conclusion back then was that I'm really fucked up, that something is really wrong with me. And my worst fear was that anybody would find out about it. How twisted, crazy I am, how ashamed I was of myself because of these thoughts. Wow, it's hard to describe. I was trying to suppress it in any way. I was cursing myself. I was fighting with myself. I was convinced that my mind hates me, that my brain hates me. This is because this was my experience. And when I grew up, and it grew up with me, so it evolved. These images, they became images involving people that I met, and always some kind of unpleasant interactions, something that are crazy, that are even how to describe in words, of me hurting myself, hurting others, doing the most disgusting things, and being shocked by myself, by my own mind, my own thoughts. So this was a major problem for me for many years. And when I learned this approach that I'm teaching now, I started to look at it differently, because I realized that everything comes from this child, this body, emotion, thoughts child. And I started looking at this phenomenon more and more through this perspective. And I realized, okay, so looking at this, once again, like I told you before, with the elephant, if I just see the trunk of the elephant, I have a very confused idea about the elephant. So if I just look at this image and I think, oh, this is it, then yeah, I get scared and it's very unpleasant. But I started looking at the whole thing. Okay, this is the image that this child is showing me for some reason. But while showing this image, he feels so scared. He's crazy scared. He's so ashamed of himself. and he feels so alone. And he holds so much tension in his body. He's like reacting really to danger. He's trying to be small, that nobody can see him. He's breathing very slow, very small breaths. And his entire being is like screaming something. But what comes up is this image, this twisted image, or these voices that tell me, oh, you're crazy, or such and such. So I started thinking, okay, what if this child is not actually trying to hurt me with these thoughts, but he's, on the contrary, he is asking for something. And then I remember this classic thing, that sometimes in kindergarten, children, they get paper and they're drawing stuff like house and a sun and a flower. But one child, like 20 children, they all draw happy stuff, sunny, happy stuff. And one child, he draws a big black monster. So what do we as adults understand from this drawing? And if it happens again and again and again, surely we will start thinking, okay, there is some kind of message here. The child is telling us that something in his life, he is experiencing like a big black monster. Maybe somebody is hurting him, or some need of his is not getting satisfied. There is some kind of trouble there, right? You don't have to be a genius to understand this. It's intuitive. So if this child is painting these horrible pictures again and again, why is he doing it? He's telling something about his experience, and he is hoping, although subconsciously, that someone would see it and understand and will help him. It's like a message in a bottle, We hope that someone will understand. And it happens subconsciously. So I started talking with this child. I started by acknowledging this reality. I started talking to him, which means to myself, in my mind, yes, not out loud. And just describing the reality. Okay, I see that you are painting this picture. This is true. And I see that you are so sad and lonely and afraid and have so much guilt and shame, and that you are holding so much tension here, trying to protect yourself. Is this what's happening right now? And the answer is coming that, yes, this is what's happening. So I understand that you're asking for something. And I started to develop the ability to have this conversation with myself, like respecting my own being, just talking to him like a person, not some kind of computer, like they say, okay, this is the subconscious mind, you have to program it. No. It's a human being. It's a sensitive human being, and he's carrying so much fear and insecurity and lack of ability to communicate, because nobody taught him how to communicate his emotions, his needs. So he's locked up in some kind of dark basement inside, and he's sending these messages, oh, help me, And I started seeing this reality, and I started to have more and more of this conversation with myself inside. So a conversation means that my thoughts become conscious. Instead of being a stream of repetitions from my childhood, like it normally is, or what was then, what will happen next, what happened then, what will happen next, like going from past to future, I started having a conscious, loving, compassionate conversation, respecting my inner being, respecting the sensitivity and the intelligence that I have in me. So I started asking, and the answers came naturally. Oh, and there is one classic story that I can tell about it. I think it will explain the whole thing in a very easy way, And it happened just a few years ago. I don't get so much intrusive thoughts anymore, and I don't even call them that. I just call them just messages of love from my inner child, They are inspiring me. They are showing me something deep that I didn't notice. It's like a gift. So, but some years ago, I was with a girlfriend back then, and we went to a party. It was in the nature, and there were children and adults and music and food stands, and And for a moment, I remember that my girlfriend back then, she went somewhere to buy something, and I was just sitting there by myself. And I looked around, and I see all these people enjoying and music and dancing. And I guess for that moment, I felt some kind of loneliness, so like, oh, I'm here on my own right now, nobody's noticing me. And then I saw a father with a maybe 3 or 4-year-old daughter, and there was a fire there. He was showing her the fire, like they put a stick in the fire together, something like that. And a flash of a picture came to me like I have to push this girl into the fire. And, the first response to such an image is, what's going on?
Right.
Crazy? Are you insane? What is wrong with you, man? What is wrong with you? This is the intuitive response for such an image, but I'm not doing this anymore, because I understand that only a child can paint such an image. Of course, there is no way I would ever do anything to hurt anybody, but this child is sending a message. Why? So I asked him, okay, you are sending me this message. I'm not taking it literally. I know who I am. I'm not somebody who wants to hurt anybody. But this image came up. So why did you show me this to me? I started to have a conversation with myself. And after a few moments, not minutes, started to remember that I was an only child until I was 7. Then my sister was born. And being the first child, the first grandchild, everybody was very excited about me, very proud that I exist. On the other hand, I experienced so much violence and abuse, but there was also that. I was so celebrated, like, oh, this the first son, the first grandchild. I was like on some kind of high stand, like. And I got used to this feeling. Everybody is noticing me because I'm so important for some reason. And there I was in this party, and I'm alone. Nobody is noticing me. Everybody is busy enjoying themselves. And there is this child, small girl, that she is getting attention from her father. He's showing her how to put the stick in the fire. Such a beautiful sight.
You're like,
and then my child inside is so envy. Oh my God, I want this attention. And this was his childish, like from a place, maybe himself, like 3 years old. He drew me this picture. And what I understood from it is that he needs my attention. Because at this moment, I was looking at the people outside and somewhat recreating the situation that, oh, I'm alone and nobody is noticing me. But meanwhile, I was not noticing myself. And so when this image came up and I started noticing myself, it took less than a minute to come to a point of gratitude that I said, oh my God, yes, thank you for showing me this. How important it is to you that I will notice you, that my consciousness will be here and not outside getting lost in the thoughts that, oh, I'm so lonely, comparing myself with other people, but not looking at this child and being a good parent to myself. So all this thing took less than a minute, all this process, and it changed my experience from feeling lonely to feeling gratitude. That thanks to this thought that really it's scary to talk about it. It's really, even now that I'm telling this, some thought, oh, why are you saying this? People will see it and they will think that you are crazy and that you are dangerous and you're violent. Who in his normal mind, his right mind, would have such a thought, that it's a fear of judgment of what would people say. But I know, because I've already shared it, that people will understand that such images, they don't define you as a person. They don't say that, oh, this is who you are and you should be in jail. No, because all of us have these images or ideas from time to time. But when we understand that it's just a childish place inside, asking for attention, asking for help, and it's in our benefit to give it to ourselves, just by paying attention, having a loving conversation with this part, then all this thing becomes a healing process, of empowerment process, and not because from this experience I could easily get very, very frustrated with myself, because to have such an image is really scary for a moment, But this is why this
There's so-
image is there, because we cannot ignore it. Because the child within, as if knows that if an image is not shocking enough, we will ignore it, because we have ignored for so many years. So now only the most shocking image will appear because you can't ignore this anymore. So it shows, in my understanding, how important it is to get my own attention.
Yeah, and but I think there's so much shame of these thoughts that people are reluctant to, to talk about it or to notice it or even, let it into their own consciousness. Shame and judgment about it. So,
this is, by the way, the reason why I like to tell my own story, because my own story has so much craziness in it. So when I talk about it openly, people feel more safe to talk to me, because they say, okay, you had this, you know how it feels, you know what it is, and you are talking about it, so maybe it's okay to talk about it too. It will inspire people to see that, okay, this is something we can talk about. It's not such a big issue that we can't even talk about it.
Yeah, it's nice. You're creating an atmosphere where they can do it. So.